Donnie and Dolly. The team is supported by ableauctions.ca. Closing your business? We can help.
All of our guests today, including Ken Holland, standing by, sponsored by Basant Motors. Basant Motors celebrating its 32nd birthday with their anniversary sale. Get all the details at basantmotors.com. Oilers at Rogers Arena to play the Canucks tomorrow. Joining us now, President of Hockey Operations, GM of the Edmonton Oilers, Ken Holland. Ken, thanks for doing this, sir. How are you?
Good. Nice to be with you.
Yeah, thanks so much for doing this. You get to speak to your home province here. Hey, Ken, let me start off this interview this way because there's a lot of interest in this subject around these parts. What has Brandon Sutter shown you so far in his PTO with the Oilers?
I'd say he looks, I haven't really watched him, obviously he hasn't played hockey for the last 2 years, so coming in, it was a real unknown. I said to Brandon, middle of August, he hadn't played hockey in 2 years. Obviously, he had COVID, and I think long COVID. If he can, have his game back to where, he was during his career, he's exactly what we need. A fourth line center or bottom six center, shoots right, wins some draws, good defensively, and. So far in the early going, he come in here 2 weeks early. He's been skating with our guys, get his legs and practice. So far he's been pretty good. I'm hoping he forces into making a real difficult decision in the next 10 days. We can certainly use what he brings.
A lot of people pulling for him around these parts. Ken, sixth best record in the National Hockey League last season. You have some of the best players in the world. I don't have to tell people that. Lost in 6 to Vegas in the second round. You get past that series, Lord knows what could have happened. In what way is your team better this time around?
Well, I'm not sure. We obviously the cap. When you look at last year's team, Bukestad is gone, Klim Kostin is gone, Yamamoto is gone. It's really an NHL line. We've obviously added Connor Brown. He played the other night. We're excited what he can bring to our team. So, we added Ekholm. So we had Ekholm the last 20 games. So I think I'm hoping that the experience of being in the playoffs the last couple of years will make a difference. Somewhere down the road, but I look at it, starts with 82 games here in the middle of October, and we got to play our way back into the playoffs. Again, it's going to be a hard conference to make the playoffs. Both conferences are hard to make the playoffs. There's probably, maybe not all 16, but 13, 14 teams in our conference have aspirations to make the playoffs, and we've got to do it all over again. So probably not as deep, but we're going to have Ekholm for a full year. We've added Connor Brown. And some of our young players like Bouchard now with Tyson Berry gone the last 20 games in the playoffs last year took a big jump. A really good year for Stu Skinner in goal, being a finalist for the Calder Trophy. So McLeod is a good young player for us. So part of getting better is some of your young players taking a step. And obviously we've added we did have Ekholm, but for a full season we've got Ekholm and Connor Brown.
Well, Ken, it must be nice to have two of the best players in the world in your lineup every night, McDavid and Draisaitl. Win now. The window to win now is in Edmonton. You hear a lot of that from the media and fans. What do you say, Ken, when you hear that?
Well, I think that's what we're trying to do. Certainly we've been given the go-ahead from our ownership we go to the cap. I've tried to spend futures, 2 first-round picks as part of a deal to bring in Ekholm. We traded a second-round pick 2 years ago to bring in Kulak and re-sign Kulak. Obviously we went out a couple of years ago and signed Zach Hyman and signed Evander Kane. So, we're trying to, certainly I know that we've got two, incredible players, two of the great players of their era and maybe the great players in the history of the game in the prime of their career. So, I like to think we're trying to do everything we can to make our team, surround them. We've lost to the last 2 Stanley Cup champions 2 years ago, lost in the third round to Colorado, second round last year to Vegas. you just got to keep banging on the door. That's what I learned, I guess, in my time in Detroit was, you got to start all over again. You got to reprove yourself over 82 games. You got to qualify for the playoffs, and you got to put yourself back in that position multiple times. And that's really what Vegas did. I think they were in the Final four times in the last 6 years, and this year they broke through. And you look at what Colorado did, and you look what Tampa Bay did, and we're trying to, build our team, have some growth from within. We've added some pieces from the outside, but if you want to eventually be the last team standing, you got to be in the playoffs every year, and you just got to keep banging away. And I can't tell you it's going to happen, but I think that's the formula. It's just you have multiple chances, and all those experiences somewhere down the road make a difference.
Hey, Ken, your thoughts on the Pacific Division? You got the Stanley Cup champs in there, as you well know. Seattle, 46 wins last year. You guys had 50 last year. Is the division tougher this year in your eyes after looking at the offseason changes by all the teams in the Pacific?
Well, I think so. I mean, obviously the Stanley Cup champion come out of the Pacific Division in Vegas, and certainly LA's got a tremendous hockey team, and they keep making moves and doing things to get better. And I certainly expect Vancouver and Calgary are going to have pushing hard to be in the playoffs. Like I said, Seattle had a real good year, so not sure. Obviously, Anaheim and San Jose are probably some younger teams, and but certainly we've got probably 6 really good teams in our division, and maybe one of those other teams surprise and push for a playoff spot. But I think that the Pacific Division, in my mind, is way. I think last year people kind of felt that the Pacific Division around the hockey circles wasn't maybe that strong, but I think it's way stronger than people think. I think it's there's a lot of good teams. I think it's going to be really hard to qualify for the playoffs, and I kind of look at 10-game segments. Every 10-game segment, you need to win 6 or 7 if you want to be a playoff team. So you have maybe one bad segment, you get away with it, but if you have a couple of 3 or 4 win 10-game segments, it starts to get to be a big mountain to climb to make for the playoffs. So important to get off to a great start, get some wins on the board, and get off and running. But I think the Pacific Division is a way better division than people think, and it's going to be difficult to make the playoffs.
Talking with Ken Holland. Ken, 3 years left on Connor McDavid's contract. How would you describe his sense of urgency, the organization's sense of urgency when it comes to grabbing another Stanley Cup title for the city of Edmonton?
Well, first off, Connor is focused. I've been very lucky in Detroit to be around some incredibly focused and determined and committed athletes, and Connor is probably the most committed, the most focused, the most determined athlete that I've ever been around. It's a year-round commitment from him. Whenever our season ends, a few days later, he's back training for the following season. He's working on things in the off season that he thinks he wants to change, make better, or add to his game. Leon Draisaitl's not. He's right there. He's both guys want to win. They're team players. They want to win. They're committed to team success. And like I said, they're obviously in the prime of their career, and this is going into my 5th year. I've been here for 4 years. I felt that the first year we wanted to kind of compete for a playoff spot. We did, and we've kind of grown and built here. I think we're a little bit better and deeper than we were 2-3 years ago. So again, like I said, I'm back to the same old thing. You gotta reprove it again over 82 games. You gotta play your way into the playoffs. You gotta put yourself back in those situations, and then you gotta play your best hockey at the most important time of the year. That's what sports is all about. So they're great players. I think we had a really good year last year. I think you said 6th overall. Disappointed that we lost in the second round, but we're back trying again.
Ken, thanks so much for this. Appreciate it. All the best this season.
No problem. Thanks, guys.